When planning for the public transport network and future projects, there's several things to consider. You have growth, population or otherwise, which can require more capacity or more coverage. And then you have existing issues, congestion on existing corridors, reliability, capacity, or even just addressing frequency. And all across South East Queensland there are many projects designed to address multiple of these things. Crossover Rail, Logan to Gold Coast Faster Rail, Sunshine Coast Direct Line, and even more proposed projects like Springfield to Ipswich, Goodna Train Line, or the Northwest Transit Corridor, all address multiple of these factors. So then imagine we had three areas, all expecting a large population boom, while the transport links between these areas are ineffective or congested. And then imagine after all of that, you look for the transport planning and there have been no plans to better link these areas. Well, I say, let's change that. Welcome to the train line I think we should build. Welcome to the Ipswich to Gold Coast line. To explain why a rail line might be needed, let's start by looking at the existing transport links. First, we'll start with the motorway. The Logan motorway, built in 1988 and upgraded in 2015 by Transurban, the Logan motorway branches off from the Ipswich motorway around Goodna, passing through the Centenary motorway, the Mount Lindesay highway near Browns Plains, linking to the Gateway motorway before passing through the middle of Logan, before connecting back to the Pacific motorway near Loganlea. The alignment of the motorway also intersects with several key train lines, being the Ipswich, Springfield, Interstate, and the Beenleigh and Gold Coast lines. As far as motorways go, chances are if you're watching this video, you already know the basic issues that motorways can have: car dependency, induced demand, etc. It's not the direction I want to take with the issues with this motorway. As mentioned before, this motorway is operated by Transurban. That means this motorway is tolled. I'm not going to make the claim that toll roads are inherently bad, but there are things to keep in mind. Toll roads naturally have an equity problem. While yes, they drive down demand and reduce congestion, for those that are further away from good quality transport are forced between a longer commute or a way too expensive one. Ultimately, this leaves toll roads to be at best a controversial tool which can pass some of the costs associated with motorways back onto the drivers that actually use them. And yes, while theoretically toll roads are good at reducing congestion, well in practice, welcome to the Logan motorway. Congestion in peak hour is still significant, with congestion not only building back onto the motorway, but feeding back onto the local roads themselves, blocking traffic even unrelated to the motorway. It's worth considering the demand of this motorway is still being suppressed by the toll, an effect so strong that toll roads all around Australia perform well under forecasted levels. Demand is being suppressed, and there is still capacity issues. And congestion isn't the only issue. The equity problem is still present, and this is one of the main links in the area, an area with really high economic disadvantage. A toll road is the main link through an area with economic disadvantage, and it is still congested. That alone should be enough to show why this motorway is not enough for this area. But even with how it is now, it's congested, but it's projected to still get even worse. This road is not suited for the local area. Even if induced demand wasn't an issue and you could add more lanes to solve the traffic congestion, the equity issue does not go away. People are paying way too much to use this road, a road they may struggle to afford, and are sitting in traffic regardless. So, with the motorway insufficient, what about public transport? Just because there's congestion doesn't necessarily mean we need to spend a lot of money on a brand new train line. Well, when the Logan motorway can support 200,000 vehicles per day, surely there is demand for an effective public transport link along the same route. So let's put public transport to the test, a race against itself. For this, I invited a friend down to Ipswich train station to let the race begin.
where I will be getting a train all the way into the city, then back out to Loganlea again, most likely on the All Stops Beenleigh train because of a poor connection time to the Gold Coast Express.
While I ride the 501 to Springfield, the unreliable 534 to Browns Plains, then the 560 to Loganlea. Let the race begin. Now the goal of this race is to do two things. Both see how sufficient the public transport network is, but also to see what other unique things you discover by riding the transport yourself. As voted by the community, the train was given a head start for this. But if transport were sufficient, the bus should still be able to win compared to getting the train all the way into the city and back out. With that out of the way, let's get back to the race. Travel signs are showing already for Team Bus, while the 501 is a very useful link which my race partner will explain later. The current timetable has extreme padding, which results in the bus sitting around or driving way slower than the speed limit to not run early. This has shown itself with the bus driving around 40 km an hour, while the road speed is at least 60 km an hour for the same sections. It may not seem like much, but over the long distance this route covers, and then how far my trip is, every slow section will really add up.
As someone who regularly commutes between Springfield Central and Ipswich, the 501 bus is a much better option. This is because it is much quicker and is also far more convenient, as you don't need to change trains during your journey, and it is 10 minutes quicker.
That's enough time on the 501 now, as I finally arrive at Springfield Central and get to enjoy a lovely wait for the next bus, while the train is just passing to Wall. Things have gotten worse for Team Bus. Normally when you get in the train, you'll miss the Gold Coast train as you arrive at Rover Street. This then means you are forced to catch the Beenleigh train, which stops all stations. But if the Gold Coast train were running late, which it is today, that gives Team Train a very big advantage.
This is a Gold Coast train, running express from Bongo Road to Beenleigh.
The bus now already running late, the 534 now arrives, and I can finally continue to Browns Plains. At this point, with the bus doing a loop around Springfield and finally leaving the area for the train to be a Runcorn, it's pretty clear the bus isn't going to win this. Not only has the bus route failed, it is already so much worse than just going to the city and going back out. Given the route that the 534 has to take, it's no wonder why it is so much slower. The extra winding has to do around the Ellen Grove area, part of which I wonder is a result of the toll motorway and just the worst road network overall to avoid competing with the motorway too much. It slows down the bus, but it would slow down anyone driving a car too, and that's of course they wanted to pay for the toll. And slowing down the bus is a big understatement. We had no traffic, no congestion, but the bus was around 20 minutes late towards the end of the run. I don't think it was just because the bus driver didn't drive super fast in all the tight corners the bus has to deal with, driving more sensibly, and the bus is immediately late. It's hard to understate how much I did not enjoy riding this bus. I was very glad to get to Browns Plains and move on. But before we get to Browns Plains, there is time for one more race update. While we are passing through Forest Lake, Team Train has a very important message to tell me.
Team Train has arrived at Loganlea with no bus in sight. Even if I had gotten on the Beenleigh all stops like I originally planned, Still would have beaten them by more than an hour. I even had time to go to Beenleigh and back.
With the race basically over, and it's just continuing the trip now, there is one thing that I really want to make note of. Despite how terrible this bus was, there was a surprising amount of people that actually did ride end to end. It wasn't just me. I noticed a good portion of the passengers were getting on at Springfield, or got on even before me, and were getting off at Brown's Plains as well. For a route that bad, it wouldn't be that many people normally riding it end to end, and I have to wonder, again, like with the motorway making the local road network worse, I wonder too if people are genuinely riding this bus end to end because the toll is too expensive for them. As bad as this bus is, paying 10 times as much because of 50-cent fares for the motorway just doesn't make sense. Now that I'm on the 560 and it leaves Brown's Plains nearly empty, I think there might be something to this, because from Brown's Plains to Loganlea there's plenty of free large main roads that people can drive down. So it's only towards the end of the route, getting close to Loganlea, where this bus actually then picks up in usage. As much as I did not enjoy doing this route, particularly at the 534, I think being here in person to see it for myself, to see all the potential side effects of a toll motorway, it just makes you see even more how much better transport this area really needs. But anyway, the journey comes to an end. The bus now finally arrives at Loganlea with me on board. This brings the race to a very disappointing but unfortunately expected end. It is just clear that the transport links between Ipswich, Logan and the Gold Coast are just not good enough. The roads are bad and public transport is just too slow or too indirect. So if the issues as they stand, where should we go from here? Well, hopefully, as I'm gonna argue for, we go from here by train. Now you may be wondering, why do a train and not say a bus on the motorway? And while yeah, in the short term you definitely could run more buses on this corridor, the problem that you're going to have is, well, notably, a bus on the motorway suffers the same traffic and congestion that the motorway itself does. Not only that, the limited capacity buses have, you have to run enough buses, otherwise the buses themselves will be also over capacity. And with a motorway corridor that sees 200,000 trips a day, if for now we want to assume that a cow is a sphere, you'll need around 54 buses per hour each direction to equalize the same amount of capacity. Now sure, a lot of trips on this won't be end to end, but also consider that a lot of trips on this aren't also spread out. They'll be mostly during peak hour. Capacity will be needed. So to meet that amount of buses, the only realistic way to do it would be to build a busway. There's nothing inherently wrong with the busway. The Southeast Busway is capable of handling way more people than what is required for this line. But there's a small catch. The Southeast Busway is designed to take people from a central point, Brisbane CBD, with buses then travelling along the busway to serve destinations along it, but then also spreading out along the busway, spreading the services to serve a wider area. And while this is effective, the Logan motorway doesn't really have the same comparison. As an east-west route, it lacks a defining central point to branch out from, meaning that routes that use this corridor have to be either brand new ones or existing ones that have been extended that could just be extended to a train station. A train station with trains that could equalize the usage of the motorway capacity-wise with just 4 trains per hour. And it's not just being able to carry more people more efficiently. For the Southeast Busway, the most major destinations are already along the busway, or they are closer to the city than the busway. For the Logan motorway corridor, the bigger destinations are beyond the busway, the Gold Coast, Ipswich, even Springfield. They are all bigger than what would be served by this busway. This was part of why Perth's busways got converted into what are now the Mandurah and Yanchep train lines, being able to serve destinations well beyond the scope of the busway. So that's why it's better to pick a train line in this case. But now, how do we know that this train line will actually get the usage that we're expecting? While we've been just taking the capacity of the motorway and just saying this then that, a little bit more to that to suggest why a train line will be needed. Outside of all the population growth, and even congestion growth inside this corridor, but there's also commute habits, with a significant portion of people actually commuting within their LGAs, letting a line like this better serve the areas of Logan and some parts of Ipswich. This line can also support large levels of employment growth expected in both the northern Gold Coast area, the Ipswich area, and even parts of the Logan and Forest Lake area are all expecting really high percentage growth in employment. And with high population growth, particularly in the Gold Coast and Ipswich area, this gives new opportunities for commutes for those working or travelling between Ipswich and the Gold Coast. And there's one more kind of big thing to consider. Remember at the beginning where I said how toll roads suppress demand? There would be a noticeable number of people that are electing to not work along this corridor simply because it is too unaffordable and not worth the extra cost. Building a train line like this, it will open up a lot more people willing to commute between these regions. But especially with 50-cent fares, you'll see a lot of latent demand suddenly become very visible. So, what could this new train line look like? When designing a train line, there's three main things to consider: speed, coverage, and cost. With that in mind, I've prepared two different alignments for this video. One that follows the motorway, which prioritizes cost and speed, then one that prioritizes coverage while not sacrificing cost and speed too much. Starting at Goodna, we start with an upgraded train station to support the new alignment, with a tunnel to support the train line heading towards Elm Grove. A tunnel here isn't essential, but is useful to avoid unpopular and expensive property resumptions. Arriving into Elm Grove, we see the first opportunity for an infill station on an existing line. Elm Grove station was proposed with the original Springfield line, but was not constructed. The line remains in the tunnel on this portion to avoid the already elevated Springfield line and to easier access Forest Lake. This is also the first section where the motorway alignment branches off from the main alignment. As we head into Forest Lake, we see where the new station could be, as well as the motorway alignment below. It is worth noting that with the motorway alignment, there is a potential infill station added for Forest Lake. It's marked as an infill station due to its difficult location, being far from the shops, and the difficulty in trying to add a main link road as well as any potential car parks. The outcome of this is if the motorway alignment is chosen, chances are to access Forest Lake properly would require bus transfer at either Elm Grove or Heathwood. After leaving Forest Lake, the train line returns to the surface for then a surface level station at the bottom of Heathwood. This is to avoid more expensive tunnelling or new rail overpass, with the road built to go over the train line instead. Heathwood station will be large enough to support a bus station to support suburbs to the north and to the east of the station, with plenty of room to allow the suburb to grow around the train station as well. Moving towards Browns Plains, we have our link to the potential Beaudesert train line, with our railway hugging the existing railway to minimise environmental damage, with some wildlife bridges proposed to help allow wildlife to slip across the rail corridor. To help limit costs, the section through Browns Plains is proposed to be an elevated train line. This is possible as the main road is wide enough to support a large station. For example, Springfield Central would fit within the footprint of the main road, but also be high enough to allow the train line to go over the nearby motorway, also then allowing a concourse to connect to the nearby bus station and the shopping centre. While the visual impact of elevated train lines can be controversial, Their appearance in Australia in particular has become far more common in recent years, with both Melbourne and Perth, with the level crossing removal programs having elevated sections, and also Bethania Station now seeing itself become elevated with our own level crossing removal and Logan the Gold Coast Faster Rail. Now leaving Browns Plains, we see the motorway line once again branch off from the main option, and also the site of a potential infill station on the main corridor. This site is listed as an infill station, as there's obviously no development nearby the station at the moment, but it could serve as a future park and ride station, or, if we are able to develop in this area, more density and more housing in the potential future. The main corridor then returns back to being a tunnel, but as it follows under the main road at least for a portion, this section could be built as cut and cover, which saves costs over traditional deep bored tunnels like TBMs. We now head over to Marsden. This is our last suburb before we finish at Loganlea. The motorway alignment can be seen to the north of the suburb. Notably, the train line stays outside the motorway instead of running through the median. While median motorway running is an option and may prove to be cheaper, it does make a worse experience for the passenger, being inside the motorway, and also on top of that, it makes access to the train line worse. Oftentimes motorway median stations can find themselves in the middle of the motorway interchanges, which increases walking distance far beyond what would be expected. Even when a motorway station is without being inside a motorway interchange, it still forces the bus station then to pick one side, which then for locals increases walking distance to their main bus station. It may not seem like much, but every meter does matter. Being 500 meters closer to the train station decreases the amount that people drive, similar to if they lived 5 kilometers closer to the CBD. And while yes, in this video I am suggesting a motorway alignment, this is something that we could do, not necessarily something that we should do. Having the train stations in the town, you are far better than 500 meters closer to the train station. Finishing off the Marsden area, the size of the suburb has space for 2 different train stations, both with a sizable plot of vacant land, with the larger one near the main town centre actually large enough to fit both a multi-storey car park, for example like the one at Ferny Grove, as well as several other buildings to make a much larger development for the area. After this, the train line continues in a tunnel, where we can join up with the Beenleigh and Gold Coast line at Loganlea. The junction layout design I've gone with is modelled off Glenfield Station in Sydney. This layout allows trains from this line to easily access both the Gold Coast and Beenleigh lines without obstructing the other line that's not connected. The benefit of this is not only that we could serve both lines at the same time if we wanted to, but also means that we could change our mind in the future. We may run majority trains to the Gold Coast at first, but then we may decide that we need to run more trains to the city from the Gold Coast, so this line then serves Beenleigh instead. This line then joins up with the new Loganlea train station, brought to you by Logan the Gold Coast Faster Rail, and then the services can then continue to either the Gold Coast or Beenleigh. Thanks to ETCS Level 2 signalling, and the Beenleigh and Gold Coast line merging into crossover rail, there will be sufficient capacity on both lines to support this service. Then again on the Ipswich side, the service can also merge in with the train for Ipswich. There is a slight complication with freight, however, with 50-minute frequency on both lines, that still leaves plenty of gaps for coal traffic to travel through, as what is seen currently when they sometimes divert through South Brisbane. And long term, with inland rail, coal traffic can be diverted away from this part of the city completely. Orbital lines like this are useful in multiple of ways. While in our case it can link the Gold Coast to Ipswich, which is quite useful, people within Forest Lake or the Marsden area could transfer at Loganlea or Ellen Grove for more faster ways into the city. And combined with the future Beaudesert line, like the Tennyson line, we could see services divert around disruptions or track closures. And other Australian cities are recognising the benefit in orbital links like this. Perth just recently completed the Thornley to Coburn link, and then Melbourne with the suburban rail loop are building a much larger project than what this is. Meanwhile, Sydney already benefits with the T2 and T5 line, offering orbital links from the Parramatta area through to Liverpool and Glenfield. Now, I understand some skepticism. After all, even the motorway version of this will still cost a decent amount of money. However, there are ways to make back some of the cost, and that is through supporting further development and higher densities. Have you ever looked at the projects other cities have been building? Sydney Metro, $12, $20, $30 billion. Melbourne, the airport line and the suburban rail loop, 12 to 30 billion and even more. And it's not just that these cities have more people, although it does definitely help. These cities, when they build these projects, use them to also support new development. New housing, new areas, more money in the economy, more money for the government. There's also more direct ways for these projects to pay themselves off. Even with a tunnel line, there is still leftover land from construction even above the station entrance that can be used for development, either built by the government or sold to a private developer for them to build on themselves. Suburban rail loop and Sydney Metro specifically heavily utilise this method to help make projects more viable if the costs get too high. On a side note, sometimes the developments become the main benefit of some of these rail projects. But moving back home, we have a history of this too. Crossover Rail secured over $1 billion in private sector funding to build a development over the Albert Street train station. But outside of that, have you seen the plans for housing around Wollongabba train station? On top of that, on the smaller scale we have TOD projects like what's seen at Buranda and Albion. And yes, it's better to densify around the inner city and the CBD. These other cities have shown that development around the middle is still possible. And with the growth expected anyway for Ipswich and Logan, with the suburbs of Goodna, Ellen Grove, Forest Lake, Browns Plains, Marsden and Loganlea all being relatively low density, there is an option for growth here, for investment for these areas, for the housing boom to be built up instead of built out. Now, as mentioned before, some projects take this too far. Projects that otherwise not get off the ground are used to justify development that could happen anywhere else, including along existing lines, which would be preferable than spending a bunch of money to just build new housing. After all, it's transit-oriented development, not development-oriented transit. The goal should be to do a project that we need, and to use value capture to do something big or something medium to make some of the money back. So, what's something big that we could do? Something that needs a transport project. Let's look at Loganlea, between Brisbane and the Gold Coast, and the new junction to Ipswich. What if we built it up like Parramatta? Don't click off, I know that sounds crazy, just hear me out for a moment. Parramatta as an area has seen insane growth, is an area that has become well and truly a second CBD for Sydney, and this large growth has come within a 20-year period. While it's easier to say that Loganlea could never look anything like this, if you rewind Parramatta those 20 years, the reputation of the area was one where the most activity was from the local courthouse. That's not a very flattering description and doesn't sound too far off how people would see Logan now. Parramatta benefits strongly from being in the centre of the Sydney metro area, allowing quick links to the rest of Sydney. Loganlea, sitting between Brisbane and the Gold Coast, and with this new line also a new link to Ipswich, has the same potential as a junction, with quick links all over southeast Queensland. And here's the thing, the population Sydney had all those years ago when it started to build up Parramatta is similar to what we will have after the Olympic Games in 2032. And if we wanted to do this, it might not even be that hard. Loganlea already has a university campus, a TAFE and the main hospital. This is a good way to build a knowledge hub, to build off housing, to build off more jobs, to then snowball into the kind of area that we'd like to see. Now, we don't have to actually recreate Parramatta and Loganlea, but we are at the point where we can start developing these sorts of hubs. They can be smaller, they can be larger, but importantly, they need a much more connected city to function properly. The infrastructure that we build today not only shapes how people use the city, but also shapes how the city grows and develops, how the city thrives. When it comes to public transport projects, you're not just building for the city of today and fixing a few issues, you're building for the city that you want to see tomorrow and the people that will live there. The Ipswich to Gold Coast line is just one part of this journey. But now, I hope you all agree, it's a journey that we should take by train. Thanks for watching.